guess it was about a year and a half ago, I saw you live in New York as part of the Mandoki Soulmates. Was that your first time performing at the Beacon Theater in New York?
First time ever at the Beacon. Played New York a few times, but you know, I was the importance of that gig was not lost upon me. You know, having read over the years at the Beacon, I think it's Steely Dan, isn't it, who played there like 100 times or something like that.
Yeah, the Allman Brothers are famous for the residency there, and of course that was a great gig. When did you and Leslie first meet?
It was an odd one. Quite a nice story, actually. He booked me, not knowing anything about me, to sing just 2 songs with an orchestra. I Just Died in Your Arms, obviously. Yes. And he said, it's this weekend, quick, get me the score for the orchestra. So I sent the score over. As I walked onto the stage, the orchestra were walking off. And I remember going, something's not right here. And the score had never arrived. So I'm standing there in front of like 10,000 people in Bavaria, just with an acoustic guitar. And God's honest truth, that was the first night I invented the acoustic version of Died in Your Arms because I had to.
Sure, but people who read your bio know that you are not a stranger to big audiences with an acoustic guitar. The folklore of you, the acoustic guitar, and the kazoo opening up for Slade. Do any recordings of that exist?
No, they've all been burnt. Those were heady days. You know, that was back in the days when I'd do my show, Slade were playing, and I'd be killing time backstage with the roadies, and they'd be loading heavy machinery onto the back of their van or their lorry, you know, the truck. And I'd say, what are you doing, guys? And they said, this is the payment. You couldn't get paid in Polish zlotys. So we were taking tractor parts out and then selling the tractor parts in Germany for cash.
Wow. Wow. Okay. That's quite a story there. That's an exclusive. But speaking of orchestras, your new album, let me get this album title right. Ransomed, Healed, Restored, Forgiven. Did you know outright when you were going to be making a new album that it was going to have an orchestra?
Oh, this was a specific project, yeah. It's something I've dreamed of for a long time. Without getting too hokey, I mean, you dream when you're a lad of being in a band. Well, I did that. You dream of having a hit record. Well, we did that. But to sing along live to an 80-piece orchestra was out of this world. So yeah, I finally pulled it off. Ransomed Healed Restored Forgiven is, I don't know how well you know your hymns, but it's when I used to go to Sunday school as a little kid, you know, that religion, I've lost my religion since then, but Ransomed Healed Restored Forgiven was from one of the hymns. So it kind of fitted, you know, ransomed, well, they paid me in advance. Healed, restored, maybe the new versions, and hopefully yourself and the fans will forgive me.
Absolutely. I was trying to figure out, and pardon if this is an impolite business question, if you re-recording I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight had anything to do with a re-record clause expiring?
Nothing at all. No. That song has become my mistress, my bank manager, my albatross, my passport. I mean, many things. You know, bless you, in the States, we did, you know, that you're our biggest market. In this country, if you mention Cutting Crew, they'll go, who? If you mention I Just Died in Your Arms, they know exactly what it is. So I know how big that song is. Of course, you can therefore understand, Darren, how daunting that was. You know, yeah. My dad always used to say, I think you probably got the same, so leave well enough alone. You know? And so to re-record it and pull it off, I'm really pleased with all how done. But that was tough. I had to smoke. I don't smoke, but I had to smoke a lot of cigarettes before I did that vocal.
Yeah, it is definitely a trademark standout vocal, and it does sound natural and all that. And your vocals have really held out and held up over the years. The gig I was talking about before that you did at the Beacon Theater, you didn't change the key. Most of your peers at this point in their lives have changed the key. Is that something that's consciously done? Have you taken care of your voice on purpose, or is it more genetics?
Genetics. Well, my mum can still cuss me pretty good, fairly loud, yeah. And she's 86. I can only think of one thing, and it sounds like I've, you know, made this story up to fit. but I think it is true, and that is when Kevin died, my old, compatriot and cutting crew, there was no cutting crew. So I had this sensational publishing deal, and they said, "Where would you like to live to do your writing?" And I said, "The Caribbean," and that happened. So I lived in the Caribbean for 4 years and pretended I was a really good manager. And I was a shit manager, but I was really good at drinking rum. So maybe that just gave me another few years towards the end of my career.
Where in the Caribbean were you based for those years?
Barbados, East Coast Barbados. So we're talking very, very true, indigenous Bajan people on the nowhere near the money on the West Coast. Atlantic winds, beautiful privilege. Of course, once Nick had moved to Barbados, everybody in the world wanted to come and write songs with me.
Sure. Now, you mentioned the publishing deal. As a music industry person, I know what a publishing deal is. But in your case, you just mentioned everybody wanted to come and write songs with you. Rumor has it that you produced the original demo of Believe by Cher. Is that a rumor or is that true?
It's absolutely true. It's, you can't make it up, these stories. I mean, these days you can't lie, because the internet, you'll get found out. It's a cool story. I was friendly with a local guy who was a baggage handler at the London airport. Pretty ordinary songwriter, but he got this tune together. He asked for Kevin and I to come over and produce it. And I might be able to do this, actually.
Whoa.
He said, "We really like Been in Love Before." Been in love before, that chord. And
Yeah.
we wanted to put it in this song. So, do you believe in love, love? So it's the same chord that we put in there. I changed the melody. It used to go, "I can feel something inside." Anyway, I changed the tune. We put it together, just the chorus, okay? 7 years later, I'm in my studio, and I remember I was cleaning, hoovering, and I heard this, and I'm sure it happens to quite a few, people, not 7 years later, but I was like, what's that? I mean, I know that tune. We got paid a bottle of whiskey, and that's all we got.
Well, that's kind of the common story in the music business, that your biggest successes just happened out of nowhere, and the things that you toil and work hard, they come up nothing. But you mentioned that publishing deal before. Are there other artists that you'd worked with that most people don't really know about these collaborations? Are there, for example, did you write a Coca-Cola jingle that people heard for 30 years and they don't know it's you?
No, I didn't. I wrote some pretty shitty jingles back when I was putting Cutting Crew together. Kevin came over from Canada and we were broke. We were both making good money as in our own rights, but when you start putting a band together, you got to write songs. So we had no money. So I remember getting this jingle writing gig. Oh, I was shocking, but they loved them. I can tell you that I wrote with Steve from Marillion, if you know the rock band Marillion. Yeah,
great band.
He came over. We were kind of friends before, firm friends now. He won't mind me telling you that every guest that ever came to Barbados, our gift to them, apart from our lovely home, was to take them on a catamaran trip up the West Coast, turtles, and lots of rum, of course. And he jumped off ship and swam. He was showing off to all his adoring people. He swam to the shore, and the next thing we see is all these local people chasing after him, sort of throwing things at him. We think, oh my God, what has he done? He swims back over, and he's got a cup in his mouth, and he's swallowing salt water as he's swimming to us. This is the oddest sight. We drag him on board. He's actually been on shore and eaten a manchineel apple off a tree, thinking it's an apple. It's highly caustic, and was about to burn his Marillion singing career to a thing. So they said, "You got to drink, man. You got to drink lots of salt water. Get back on the boat and drink the Pepto-Bismol." So we had to have him drink a whole pint of pink Pepto-Bismol.
Wow.
Yeah. So a silly story.
But 40 plus years consistent earning a living as a musician. I have that correct? There was no hiatus for you?
No, I've been very blessed. as you said, Slade would have been the first proper thing. I've always had a publishing deal. I've written, over 100 songs now published. There'll probably be about 10 that are making me money, but it's been a good ride. Obviously, like yourself, I'm guessing I'm 61 now, but it's changed a hell of a lot. Those days when we used to go in with the cassettes. I mean, really did. You put a cassette, and you'd hope that this man would put his cigarette out long enough to listen to a little bit of your songs. That's how Cutting Crew got the deal.
Right. And that song that you're referencing that we talked about at the top of the interview is still played on the radio around the world every day. Probably right now there's a radio station playing it. But what are some of the Cutting Crew songs that you wish that more people knew as, an equivalent kind of song? It doesn't have to be a deep cut, but what are those songs?
Obviously, for 33 years, I've been playing them live, and you shift them down. I mean, the album was a kind of an example of that. But one song that didn't make the new album, and I've always said in every interview is my favorite Cutting Crew song, is a song called The Scattering, which is the title track from the second album. It's an Irish expression, which means when the villages die because all the youth moves out to the bigger towns for employment. And this was happening in Southern Ireland, especially. All the Dubliners all the villagers are coming over to England. So I love the expression. And I'll show you another bit of live TV here. Here we go.
Live one.
So this is what I do. This is about 25 years of titles and lyric ideas, of which, when they're crossed out, they've been used. So The Scattering probably is in there somewhere. So it was a great title. And we put it onto the album. We had the Whistle Binkies fly down from Scotland, 4 Scottish guys who were wonderful. They arrived at 11 in the morning. And the first question was, when's lunch and where's the pub? It was a beautiful song. I'm very proud of it. Yeah, beautiful.
Right. So like everybody, you're still holed up in all this. When this all ends and you can go out freely and all that, what are you hoping to do besides hit the road?
Well, without getting political, I'm not a political beast at all, but, political with a small p, I do hope that we shift. I do hope this shifts us just a millimeter. It's all it'll take of kindness and of recognition of the people that are truly important. I think it's much the same in your country as mine. It's all got very skewed over the years. So I hope that happens. I think accidentally in my industry, I mean, it's decimated. I'm supposed to be in Trinidad now doing a gig.
Right.
We've cancelled shows in the States later on in the year. It's decimated. I'm lucky because of the old publishing deal. I get paid royalties. But if you're the best bass guitarist in the world and didn't write a song, you're earning no money at the moment. So it's tough out there. But accidentally what's come from that is what you've seen, I'm sure, all over your page, is these spontaneous, live in the studio stuff or in the garden. And I want us all to remember that. I think that's been a beautiful side of it. The fans engaged to that. They always did anyway, but now we're having to do it. I hope we can take that away at the end of this and say, that's how it should be. We don't always have to play 10,000 seater arenas. I wish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And have a 10-piece band. But just talk to the quest Q&As. They've loved this, and I've loved it as well.
Absolutely. And have there been any television shows or new discoveries you've had pop culture-wise since being holed in and all that?
The wife's pretty Netflix heavy. In fact, it's quite odd. Her father-in-law, my father-in-law was living with this very ill man just before the virus, and we've managed to mothball him and get him through it, and he's going to be fine. So because he's here, and we've never had him live with us before, let's just say I'm pretty good at John Wayne movies. What's the Aubrey? Somebody, I don't know, all the Alan Ladd. Yeah, I like Alan Ladd. He's pretty cool.
Wow, that's a new discovery, I'll say. So Being respectful of your time here in closing, Nick, any last words for the kids?
For the kids, if you can't write songs, don't write songs. If you can write, even start to write a song, and you feel like you've got it in you, keep writing songs. Write forever. It will get better. It will get easier. You might get lucky like I did. And once you've done that, this is the voice of Nick from Sussex in England, is don't trust the experts, you know? Keep following your own nose. You're the only person that really knows. If you become anything that you're not, the general public will see through you, you know? So be yourself. Don't listen to these guys. You don't have to have a qualification to be a manager in this industry, and they're normally complete idiots.
Couldn't have said it any better, man. Long time fan. Keep up the great work you're doing, Nick, and hope to see you live again in New York very soon.
Thank you very much. Check out the album, folks.